You see, when I was a child growing up in America, actually when I was more a teenager in America, America was in a state of a lot of turmoil because on one hand there was a lot of prosperity, there was a lot of affluence, and certain people during times of affluence, they start to look around them and see and try and find a benefit for that affluence. And they look around and they see that even in the middle of affluence, there's a lot of suffering. And a lot of suffering is sort of covered up. So as a teenager in America, I started to have a lot of questions about things. And I found that I couldn't find teachers, authorities. I couldn't find a tradition to sort of hook into to get the answers to my questions. And I got the feeling that I would have to travel the world, search the world, and understand about the world and understand about different peoples to find the answers to my questions. And I was interested in finding an old culture. I wanted to know how things were many years ago. I was a little frightened by by a lot of the newness in our culture. The fact that the lower values in our culture were rising to the top. So there's three traditional cultures that I thought of: the culture of China, the culture of Egypt, and the culture of India. But China was in the midst of the student revolution. And in the student revolution in China, they seemed to be destroying all the traditional values and culture of China and making it into something new. And Egypt was in this post-Nasser stage of pan-Arab nationalism. And the Egypt of the ancient days, of the pyramids and the pharaohs, was long gone. So Egypt wasn't a possibility, and that left India. And I knew very little about India. So I slowly went from America to Europe, spent a little time in Europe, and went across overland through the Middle East to India. I was very interested in consciousness, and I experimented in consciousness. And I experimented with botanicals, ethnobotanicals, that expand consciousness, that cause one to perceive the world in different ways. And I wanted to go much further. I was left only with questions at that time and very few answers. But also in my explorations, I had read some Indian philosophy. I had read some Advaita Vedanta. There was a Vedanta center in Los Angeles where I grew up, and I used to go there, and I used to read some of the literature, some of the books. So I was familiar with Indian philosophy a little bit. I was interested in some of the esoteric groups that existed in the West over the last 150 years. Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophists, the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Brotherhood of White Light, and so forth. And all of these were interpretations, were Western esoteric interpretations of Indian thought. So yes, I had a strong curiosity about India, about what the possibilities were in India. If I couldn't find guidance, teaching a teacher, a guru in India that would help me to answer the many questions that were coming into my young mind at the time. So this also was behind coming to India. And I didn't come alone. Not that people were coming with me or I went with people, but there was something happening in the world at that time where a few people from different cultures, from different countries, felt a similar thing that I felt for some reason. And a number of people were making this pilgrimage to India at the same time. I knew people from many different countries, from Japan, from Germany, from South America, from the various European countries that were making the pilgrimage at that time. Not knowing exactly why, but knowing that there was some sort of calling. In those days, there were no guidebooks. There was no information, there was no internet, there was no Google where you could find out information about where do you stay in Kandahar, Afghanistan, and so forth. But what would happen is that you would meet people. People would be coming back from the east, people would be going towards the east, and we would keep notebooks. And we would ask people, well, what's happening in Tehran? What's happening in Isfahan? What about Quetta in Pakistan, or Kandahar, Mazar-e Sharif? Where are the interesting places to visit in Afghanistan, for example? And all this would go into our notebooks. And the notebooks would grow. And we'd find out about interesting places. And by the time I arrived in India, then names of people and babas and gurus would go into the notebooks, and temples, fantastic temples, signatures of nature would go into the notebook. And this became the basis of the journey, of the search in India, what became eventually a search in secret India.